This question comes from Patrick, who asks, if you tied a rope to a Boeing 747 airplane, which is flying at full speed and got enough humans pulling on the other end, could you actually drag it out of the sky to the ground? The short answer is kinda yes. Theoretically, you could, but the number of people required is so big, yet quite smaller than your expectation, that we need to walk through the math together. A fully loaded Boeing 747 weighs 910,000 pounds at takeoff. That's 455 tons, roughly the same as 125 full-grown African elephants. But here's the thing, weight isn't the enemy here. Weight is just how hard something pushes down on a scale. What we actually have to defeat is momentum. And a plane doing 570 miles per hour has a very different relationship with momentum than it does with a scale. Momentum is mass times velocity. Simple enough, but to get mass in the right units, slugs, which is just the imperial unit for mass, you divide the weight by 32.174, which is the gravitational constant in feet per second squared. So, 910,000 pounds divided by 32.174 gives us about 28,280 slugs. Multiply that by the cruising velocity of 836 feet per second. That's 570 miles per hour converted into physics terms. 28,280 times 836. That's roughly 23.6 million pound-feet per second of momentum. Written out, 23,600,000. That is the number you have to cancel to stop this plane. Sit with that for a moment. Now let's talk about what a human being can actually do. In a proper tug-of-war stance, feet planted, back low, legs driving, an average adult male can sustain about 135 pounds of pulling force. Not a strongman competitor, just a reasonably fit adult giving it everything they have for a few seconds. So here's the calculation that matters. The impulse momentum theorem says that force multiplied by time equals change in momentum. So if we want to stop the plane in 1 second, one clean, instantaneous second, we need 23,600,000 pounds of force applied all at once. Divide that by 135 pounds per person. 23,600,000 divided by 135. That's 174,814 people. Call it 175,000. To stop a 747 at cruise speed in 1 second, you need roughly 175,000 humans all pulling at exactly the same instant, with zero slack in the rope in perfect coordination, like the world's biggest tug-of-war team. Now 175,000 people sounds like a crowd. It is a crowd. It's roughly the entire population of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. About 1.5 Michigan stadiums, the largest football stadium in America. If you line those of 175,000 people up single file, 3 feet apart, the rope would stretch approximately 99 miles. New York City to Philadelphia. That's your tug-of-war line. But wait, we need a rope. What does that rope actually look like? Steel cable has a tensile strength of roughly 100,000 to 300,000 pounds per square inch, depending on grade. To carry 23.6 million pounds of force without snapping, you'd need a steel cable about 10 to 12 inches in diameter. For reference, the main suspension cables on the Golden Gate Bridge are 36 inches across. So you'd need something roughly 1/3 that size, not a rope you can hold in your hands. Something thicker than a fire hydrant. You'd need both arms just to hug. Here's where it gets genuinely interesting though. The math changes completely depending on how long you let the humans pull. The impulse momentum theorem is generous if you're patient. Force times time equals momentum change, which means the longer you pull, the less force you need. If instead of 1 second, you give your 175,000 person army 10 seconds to stop the plane, you only need 1/10 the force, about 17,500 people. Give them a full minute and you're down to under 3,000. Give them 10 minutes and mathematically, a high school football team could stop a 747 at cruise speed. Assuming the rope holds, the attachment point doesn't shear off, and everyone somehow stays on the ground instead of getting launched horizontally at 570 miles per hour, which realistically isn't possible. Which brings up the real problem for the people at the front of the line. The 747 is not waiting for you. It's moving toward the horizon at 836 feet per second. And the instant the rope goes taut, every bit of that momentum wants to travel through your body. The people nearest the plane aren't pulling it down. They're being introduced to it, very suddenly. The rope would need to transmit force gradually through its length, which real ropes do, through stretch and elasticity, but even so, the frontliners are having a profoundly bad day at work. Here is the one number that should change how you think about all of this. The 747's own nose gear, tow lugs, the attachment points engineers specifically designed for pulling this aircraft, are rated for about 300,000 pounds of towing force. That's for ground handling at walking speed, essentially from rest. The force needed to stop this plane in 1 second at cruise speed is 260 times greater than what the plane's own engineered tow points can handle. The airplane would tear itself apart at the detachment point before 175,000 humans even slowed it down. So, can enough humans pull a 747 out of the sky? Yes. Roughly 175,000 of them pulling a cable thicker than a fire hydrant attached to a plane that would structurally fail before they finished. Sometimes the math gives you an answer. Sometimes the answer just opens a door to a stranger room.